right? So we've made a decision. We've made a decision. We want to change. I want to make a change and I want to reinvent myself. I want to become a new me, right? So now, where do I start? What do I need to focus on? So if you were to tell somebody, Derek, hey, this is where you should start, what would you tell them to focus on first?
For me, I think the first thing we need to do is identify why. So I think for me, it was taking inventory of like, so good that we want to change, but then I think you need to answer multiple questions, but I think you really need to, I think you really need to dig in deep and take some time, like take time to save time, like identify why you're wanting to change. So, um, in a conversation, it's rather easy to do, and I think for at least for me, getting by myself and writing down, almost like a character in a movie, and you're defining who you are or who you've been, and then it makes it more, it's illustrating it on paper, and then I just went down that list of like, because I love myself. The good things that I've done and the things I'm proud of, as well as the things I'm not proud of, like, I'm not really judging myself. I know I was there. So it was as opposed to a conversation where it's hard because you may feel no matter how much trust you have, no matter how much relational equity you have, whether it be with a brother, like a sibling, a parent, a coworker, just someone you really trust, human nature, we're feeling a little bit of uncomfortable energy of what is this person gonna think? Well, for me, taking that time to sit by myself and jot and write down who I was very frictionless for me because I'm not judging myself. Again, I was there. So, wrote all that down, and then that's where I wanna start with the audience there because we need to identify who we were or who we've been. Then from there, this is where I'm gonna go into identify the problem. So, the stuff that if you're telling the truth, if you can get truthful and honest with yourself at a starting point, then you can almost take a highlighter or a red pen or something and start to highlight things you want to remove. Or and it could be don't try to overthink this, even if it was just a reaction to a situation or this event happened, or maybe you don't want that experience to happen again. Well, write that down because you can then put attention towards it. And something you say very often, the audience will hear it often. If you've been around us, you'll hear it often. But where your focus goes, your energy is going to flow, and then where you apply energy, you're going to have results. And so where I would start, and where I think I feel most responsible telling our audience to start. That works for all ages, that works for any situation. Most often, people have the resources of a piece of paper and a pen. They can get in, they can feel safe by themselves, and they can write down who they were. Now, once you have that, and once you identify what you want to change, then you can start to actually you can in my m and to summarize that, it's you choose first, identify the problem, then you can fix the problem. And so, not to be confused, I'm not saying as people, we're not problems, we just have problems, and that's never gonna change, but that's where I would start. And what methods do you have? What's coming to you, or how did you start?
Yeah, no, I love that. So, and yeah, identifying the problem is step number one, right? And then why is it a problem? Well, it's probably a problem because we're not getting the results that we want, right? We're not where we thought we should be, right? And things aren't working out the way we thought they should, right? So, why is that? And then, so we got to figure that out. And then the first way to do that is by being brutally honest with ourselves. And we got to want the truth over all things, right? So, our feelings gotta take a back seat. They gotta take a back seat. They can't be there, right? And we gotta figure out what is the truth, and then may it be so last episode, one of my things that spawned my change was a relationship, right? Well, during that, right, I had to also take stock of what was my part, right? Because I can't control that person. I can only control me, right? So what's in my control? What are my controllables? And what were the things that I could have done differently, that I could have done better? And one of the things I realized is I didn't love myself. Okay, well, good, good. Now we know, and that's the truth. Now, why? Why don't we love ourselves, right? Well, because we're not doing the things that we said we're going to do. We're not consistent. We're not showing up day in and day out. And I know the truth, right? Okay, cool. Now we know that. Now we can start from there and start taking stock of the things that we aren't doing and start figuring out why aren't we doing these things, right? Getting to the root cause of why we're not able to take action. What is hanging us up? What is the trigger? What is the block that's stopping us from doing the things that we know we should be doing? Because oftentimes, if you stopped and asked somebody what they should do, they could tell, like, not themselves, but if they were telling somebody else and they remove themselves, they can always give people the best advice. But for whatever reason, when we're giving ourselves advice, it's like we don't know what to do. It's like there's a roadblock. And what it is the ego. It's the lower self. It's the attachment. It's the feelings that are getting in the way and clouding the water or the view of what direction we should go, right? And so we just got to remove the clouds so we can see clearly of where we need to go. So that first step is taking stock. Okay. Don't love myself. All right. Good. Why don't we love ourselves? Right? Because we're not doing what we said we were going to do. Okay. Good. Why are we not doing what we said we were going to do? Right? What is that reason? What is stopping us from taking action? Well, because I don't really have my why's not strong enough. Like, why am I doing this? Like, why do I want to be this person? Right? And do I want to be seen this way? Right? And then the desire has to outweigh the pain that's going to be required in order to get where you're going. So, if the desire and the why isn't strong enough, then you're that first bout of pain, you're not going to make it, right? Because we always say, choose your pain, right? No matter what, you're going to have pain in life. And most people's problems is, and this comes from Tony Robbins, is they think they shouldn't have problems, right? Well, you're gonna have problems, and problems are a good thing because without them, you can't grow. You cannot grow without problems, right? So let's be grateful for the challenge, be grateful for the problems because that's the opportunity to grow. So when you hit that first bout of challenges, that first bout of pain, right? Is your why great enough? Is it gonna help get you through it, right? And so that's the other piece. So starting where you said, what are the things that I don't like about myself? What are the things that are causing me to not get where I wanna go? Now that we know that, then where do I wanna go? And then why do I wanna go there? And then what is it gonna look like? And I've mentored a lot of people, and one of the things that I tell them is, "Who is future you gonna be?"
Yeah.
Right? As Tony Robbins likes to say, "I built this mother sucker," and so you gotta build the person that you want to be. The person you're looking at right now, I built him. He was I was built with conscious and consistent thought. It was very thought out about what I'm going to look like, what I'm going to feel like, how I want to react to things cuz you go through this awkward phase that nobody tells you about when you start the growth journey or you wake up to reality and what's actually going on because you don't agree with, like, the things that you used to agree with, you don't agree with anymore, right? The things that you used to respond to in, like, banter and all of this, like, it's not there's no substance there anymore, so it doesn't move you anymore, and you start just, as time goes on, seeing how shallow you were, right?
Can
And
you could you give an example of that? Like, for people like, for the listeners, if they're like, "Hold on, let's what do you mean by, banter?" Like, what are you classic could you give a real world example of the banter?
yeah, banter of just literally going back and forth on stuff that means nothing, right? Just talking about sports, talking about, hey, did you see what Drake did? Did you see just nonsense stuff that literally has no depth to it? And I call it like, and I'm not saying that you can't have those conversations. I'm not saying that if you're talking about nonsense that you're a bad person or anything like that. No, I have those conversations here and there as well. But what I actually seek out is conversations of depth. Conversations where we're talking about the truth, we're getting to the truth, and we're talking about, well, why do I want to do this? Where am I going? Or what are the problems that we have? How can we solve them? Those are meaningful conversations, and so your time is precious, right? So your whole mindset on time changes, and so you don't want to exit in that moment. You now, because you see reality differently, you're looking at it through a different lens. It feels like in that moment you're wasting time, right? And the old you didn't think that way. The new you does. And so you kind of only want to be around people who are trying to solve problems, move the needle forward, and that want to get to the truth of the matter. And if they don't, you don't really have time for them, right? Because you're not on the same wavelength. You're not on the same frequency anymore. So, but when you do that, you become the oddball. You're not like everybody else because everybody else would prefer to do the banter, would prefer to talk about the stuff that doesn't move the needle, and they don't want to get to the truth. They don't want to solve problems, and they want to be blissfully ignorant to a degree. And there's a lot of people that that's how they would prefer to live life. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I am saying when you wake up, it becomes lonely because you find out there's nowhere near as many people around you that are viewing life that way. And so you have to go through this awkward phase of reinventing yourself. But then you get to a point to where once you're really started becoming rooted in the future you, who you're going to become, what you start finding is you start attracting your people. They just start showing up in the weirdest ways. It just organically happens. You don't have to go looking for them. All you have to do is just focus on you. Focus on where you're going, why you want to go there, and then taking stock of where you're at, how far have you made it, why haven't you made it to wherever your checkpoint is, and then what can you do to fix it? And then what you find is it all just becomes another one of those. It's just another one of those. It's just another one of those. And it takes the sting of life away. And then you kind of settle into the rhythm. You kind of settle in to the routine of growth, right?
Yeah.
And you expect the pain, and you're good with going ahead and getting your pain out of the way. You would rather rip the Band-Aid off. You don't want to slowly like, nah, you get in the mindset of rip that Band-Aid off. Let's go. Like,
Let's just go ahead and do this.
but that's old you wasn't that way. New you is. So how is the new you going to look, feel? Like, how are things going to taste? How are things going to smell? Like, how are you, the new you, going to feel and move and go through life? You got to figure that out, right? And then you got to start checking in. Am I one step closer? Am I one step closer? 1% gains every single day of getting a little bit closer to that new you. And then it's not a sprint from there on out because the race don't end.
Yeah.
There is no destination. It quite literally is just all about the journey. That's where the joyfully grateful comes in because you're going to settle in to the journey and settle into the moment and be grateful for all of the things because it's not just good things that we're grateful for, like we said last week, it's also the bad, quote unquote bad. And
Yeah.
so it changes your whole perspective on life. It changes how you're viewing things, but it also puts you in a weird, awkward beginning phase where you don't feel like you necessarily fit in yet. And you have to, and everybody goes through that. And you just have to make it through. And you just keep chopping wood every day. And I promise you, it gets a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. But the other way is not loving yourself, immense pain, uncontrollable pain, because like that you didn't choose, that you don't have control over, right? And depression and staying in the lower energies.